It's Friday, July 17th, 2026. Election integrity on the menu, taking the fight against left-wing terrorism global. And Ask or Tell Me Anything next on the AM Update.
First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China has signed a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project.
It's President Trump at the Oval Office during a national address on election integrity and election security, where he spoke for nearly a half an hour on various things that he is declassifying or bringing into the limelight again regarding some foreign interference in our election. Actually, that was the vast majority of his speech last night. Potential foreign interference in elections starting, as you heard there, in 2020. He detailed some classified documentation on how some of the intelligence community knew about some of these ways that various countries, including the People's Republic of China, the Chinese Communist Party, how they had access to election, were exploring ways to exploit elections. They were trying to, the intelligence community, trying to get rid of some of that evidence, but were unable to do so before the Trump administration took over this go-around. Now, he did not, to my knowledge, I didn't hear him specifically say any specific race was stolen by China or any other global nefarious actors. But the entire idea behind the speech last night, and this is how he closed with, we need the Save America Act to help secure elections and make sure that there are no non-citizens who are voting in American elections. And so the overall speech, I saw some takes saying, hey, that could have been in an email, something like that. It's a Thursday night. We're trying to wind on into a weekend. Number one, do you even citizen, bro? But number two, this is the White House's attempt to prove to Congress, to prove to the Senate that they are deadly serious about the Save America Act. They're doing all they can with the bully pulpit to shine a light on election security. So it might have been a boring speech. It might have been no maybe smoking gun, even though I think that's maybe a little bit of a mischaracterization. This was the White House and basically their communications team doing all that they can to tell the nation we've got to get serious about election security. So that was the big news from last night. President Trump's address from the Oval Office on election security. Let's go to this big political news story yesterday. Arizona Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego, potential 2028 presidential candidate, engaged in sexual relationships with at least two House staffers, and his quote-unquote very flirtatious habits with others may come back to haunt him. That's according to a story from the New York Post. The 46-year-old lawmaker admitted to the two relationships, both with aides to Texas Democrats. To one source with a second person said they had recently learned of their romantic entanglements. A third source confirmed one of those dalliances, both of which are said to have been consensual and occurred during Gallego's decade representing Phoenix in the House. So what's interesting about this, you'll remember the now dearly departed, at least from Congress, Eric Swalwell. He and Gallego were buddy-buddy, and Gallego has long maintained he had no idea. He had no idea about Eric Swalwell's romantic trysts, shall we tell them. The romantic or sexual misdeeds is more accurate. So that's yet another Democrat, this time in the Senate of all places, with some mixed up sexual deeds. Let's go to this. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Thursday convened leaders from more than 60 countries to take part in the Trump administration's latest effort to quell left-wing political violence. Secretary of State Rubio, along with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. I didn't know this. He said, Bessent said yesterday, as soon as he was sworn in as Treasury Secretary, he received a death threat as soon as he was sworn in, and he said to watch the sentencing for that would-be left-wing terrorist coming up in August. Also, one of those who spoke was Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, who had this, as you would expect, fiery thing to say.
If the leftist learns and observes that their violence and criminal activity helps and ultimately succeeds in achieving their desired political end, they will be endlessly emboldened. Here in the United States, we've seen a growing and deeply alarming increase in attempted assassinations against public figures. Most notably, of course, the multiple assassination attempts against President Trump, the successful assassination attempt against Charlie Kirk, many others. This is a fatal cancer to civilization. And the greatest risk that we have is that our institutions have grown too soft and too cowardly to be able to defend themselves against a mortal threat. If the leftist learns...
So that is White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, Secretary of State Marco Rubio himself, who convened this meeting of 60 world leaders to combat left-wing terrorism. He had this to say as well.
This is a distinctive and unique evil. It has always been driven by a hatred, above all else, a hatred for civilization itself. It is a revolt of the worst against the best, a revolt of the weak and the cowardly against the strong and the good. It is perpetrated by those who cannot build, who cannot create, who cannot achieve great things, and take their revenge upon the world for their own inadequacy by seeking to destroy those who can. This is what radical leftism is. It may wear various different slogans and ideologies across place and time. They can call themselves anti-capitalist or anti-imperialist or communist or anarchist or Marxist, but the fundamental character is always the same. It's always the same. It is a poisonous resentment cloaked in the language of equality and justice and liberation, an overwhelming need to tear down what greater men have built, to wreck what is beautiful and what is right on behalf of people who are only filled with ugliness and have nothing else to offer the world. Through violence and through terror, they once again seek to impose their ugliness on all of us.
So Secretary of State Marco Rubio, using his platform as the United States chief envoy to the rest of the planet, in no uncertain terms, not just calling out general terrorism, not just calling out general political violence, specifically left-wing political terrorism. Using his pulpit, making sure as many people around the world, not just domestically, are watching. That's an interesting move. Let's go to story number 4 on the Friday 5-Pack. Saw this interesting data from Pew, an interesting compilation of data from Pew, specifically religious data. The flow of American religion from childhood to adulthood. 70% of Protestant children stay Protestant in America. 3% become Catholic. 4% become another faith group. 23% become none. Amongst children raised in Catholic households, 56% of Catholics stay. 13% become Protestant. 4% go to another faith group, and 26% become nuns. That was just kind of interesting. We are still very much, now even though the rise of the nuns is happening, and I'm not talking about the Catholic nuns, the rise of the nuns is still going on. By and large, if you're raising your kids in Catholic or Protestant, as Catholic or Protestant, majority of them, or in the Protestant case, a supermajority of them will stay in that sect. Just interesting data quickly I saw come across yesterday. Finally, on our Friday 5-Pack, this freaking kid, national treasure. Don't let anything happen to him.
This is Bird Request Part 2. And let's get started. First we got the barn owl. Next, the ring-necked dove. Next, the American woodcock. Meep, meep, And you know, there's two different species of crows in the United States. The fish crow and the American crow. The fish crow is what I'm going to do first. Ah! 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 Then the American crow. Ha! 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 I wonder if they're going to come soon. Then Atlantic puffin. Oh. Next, the purple martin. Whippoorwill. And keep up the requests, guys. And also, I want to say thank you to Bird Collective for for sending that box to me.
For those of you listening, he's holding up the T-shirt that he's wearing. That kid, I don't know his name, went viral a couple of months ago, doing this very same thing for his classmates, just delighting his classmates. Now, that's a very special kid. Very special kid. But seriously, if you listen to that, the detail that he gets from some of these bird calls, just doing that himself, making those noises himself. I'm not sure how that talent could be used, but make no mistake, that's some talent right there. When we come back, we'll have Ask or Tell Me Anything on this Friday edition of the AM Update. It's coming up next. Ask or Tell Me Anything, I gave first priority to our Patreon supporters. Let's start with another civilian who has this story out of Missouri. Thank you for everyone who supports the AM Update over at patreon.com/the AM Update. It's a way for you to get the ad-free edition, the audio ad-free edition of the AM Update. Or if you just want to say, hey, thanks, Aaron, for continuing to do this. I thought for one fleeting moment this week we had gotten our Apple distribution issues fixed because it actually automatically refreshed for me. That was not to be, though, but I'll keep you posted on when we get those fixed. So this is a way for you to say thank you or get the ad-free edition of the AM Update if it floats your boat. But another civilian is one of our Patreon supporters at the $10 a month level. Great story out of Missouri, as I said. Commissioner banned flock cameras, then cut one down. Just want to give a shout out to Ike Skelton, probably the most based local politician in the US of A, presiding commissioner of a Missouri county. I think it's Camden County. He passed an ordinance along with James Goigan, banning any and all LPR cameras in the unincorporated areas of the county. The state had recently put one along the highway, and that was the catalyst. For several months, he sent letters to both Flock Safety and the Missouri Department of Public Safety, telling them their camera was in violation of said ordinance and it needed to be removed. Finally, around January of 2025, he had enough and went to cut it down himself. The state came and charged him with felony stealing, felony tampering, and misdemeanor obstruction of government operations. Problem for them was Missouri law defined stealing as taking something with the intent to deprive the rightful owner of their property permanently. It's not a strict liability statute, and too bad for them. As soon as he took it down, he sent a letter telling them to come get it from his office. Missouri law also has a carve-out for tampering called claim of right defense. He reasonably believed he was enforcing his ordinance. In the end, the state dropped both the felonies as there was insufficient evidence to convict. He pled guilty to the misdemeanor of obstructing a government operation and then put out a press release saying he could think of no crime he'd done or more proudly done to plead guilty to. So Ike Skelton, commissioner of Camden County, Missouri, went to the length of passing an ordinance that basically says no flock cameras. Sent legal notices saying you're in violation of our county ordinances. Why do you have a flock camera up in the middle of nowhere? He was ignored, so he cut it down and said, Flock, you can come and take your property whenever you want. I believe he's running for state senate now, Ike Skelton. So thank you, another civilian, for that wonderful story out of the state of Missouri. Let's get to the rest of your submissions. Michael Castro is back for more, who says, so if we don't believe the experts, we should go to a cave and unalive ourselves? That's very Christian of you. I'm saying this with my hand holding my chin like you do, looking like a 1992 graduation picture, so you might understand me better this time. Homeschool much? So, Michael, you're referring to something that I said during my day job, and I just want to crystallize what you're saying. So, Michael, I did the math. And I'm serious. I did the math here. I did the odds. I calculated the odds with the help of some tools. Michael, there is, and I'm telling you the truth here, there is a better chance that a single monkey sits down at a typewriter and types out the entire works of Shakespeare perfectly on its first try. There's a better chance that a monkey sits down at a typewriter, writes out perfectly the entire works of Shakespeare on the first try than there is that DNA evidence for Tyler Robinson was faked or planted, and ballistic evidence was fake or planted, and the coercion of a confession from Tyler Robinson, an innocent man, and coercing the accusation or coercing the admission from both the lover of an innocent man and the parents of an innocent man that the innocent man did this crime, and faking multiple angles of video evidence, placing that innocent man with the murder weapon in the same place and the same time as the murder. So what I was really saying that you bastardized and misconstrued is that, yes, I believe you should practice what you preach, Michael. If you truly believe that some entity or multiple entities would be able to overcome the odds of a monkey typing the entire works of Shakespeare at a typewriter perfectly on its first try, if you think entities or entities working in tandem are able to overcome those odds, yes, I believe you should practice what you preach. There's no hope for any of us. No hope for any of us. So just pack it up and move to a cave. If you really believe this, but you don't believe it. That's why you're continuing to pollute my mentions with your brain rot. Better yet, instead of moving to a cave, why don't you move to, say, like Guyana out in the jungle and start a commune? You could call it Owenstown. I'm sure you could get up to some zany hijinks there. But don't drink the lemonade. Let's move on. Jim Stalker. I'm going to throw this image up on screen, Jim. Canadian wildfires taking their toll on the air quality in northern Michigan. I can confirm the air is yellow in Alpena, Michigan, and my truck is covered in ash. Can the Canadians get their frickin' act together and do some forest management? Why is this so hard? Well, because the environmentalists, Mother Earth, something, climate change. This is ridiculous. I don't recall stories like these ever. And I've seen a number of people who live in places like Michigan, Minnesota. I saw this a lot in Minnesota, actually, but not to this degree. Said, I don't recall Canadian wildfires being such an issue growing up, living here. Now it seems like it's happening every year. Worst time of the year for it. And of course, in a place like Michigan, being surrounded by lakes, the air is always full, especially in summer, especially in a hot summer like this, very hot time of summer like this. It's full of moisture, which just traps that smoke. And no, I'm not a huge, listen to everything that, air quality is above a certain point, don't go outside. That's really bad for your lungs. It is. And it's because the Canadian government can't get their act together and actually do some controlled burns every now and then. So they just let it rage out of control. Unbelievable. Country Squire says, is there any way to get the defense of Tyler Robinson trial or pre-trial to call Candace Owens as a witness? Basically, 2 trials at once. I like that idea. I like that thinking, Country Squire. Maybe we could start a change.org petition. Maybe we could get that. We could probably get, Candace Owens supposedly has hundreds of thousands, if not millions of listeners. Do you think they all believe this stuff? We could get a petition signed by hundreds of thousands of people to get her to testify. Why not? Why didn't anybody think about this before? You're not bound by a change.org petition, but at least it would signal that people really are willing to put their beliefs where their mouths are and to put their clicks where their mouths are. So I like that idea. NorCal Trucker says, Gaza death toll. Megyn Kelly, among others, claim tens of thousands of civilians killed, including women and children. What's the truth? My search results come back with 45 to 70,000 from various sources. I'm not going to answer that question the way that you would like me to. I'm going to answer that question with another question. For a very important reason. NorCal Trucker or Megyn Kelly. I would ask Megyn Kelly, who stole my podcast name, by the way. Have not gotten over that. What is the acceptable number of Israeli civilians killed by Hamas? I'm waiting. Still waiting. In case you didn't hear me. What is the acceptable number of Israeli civilians killed by Hamas? Is it 2? Is it 22? 202? 2,000? Okay. Until you can answer that question, I don't really want to hear what you have to say about the so-called Gaza death toll. Number 2. Is it or is it not true that Hamas uses civilians as human shields? You got to answer that question as well. Once you answer those questions, we will be able to have a rational discussion about what a proportional response from the Israeli Defense Forces and the Israeli government is or was to tackling Hamas. So once you answer those questions, how many civilian deaths at the hands of Hamas, how many Israeli civilians is too much? What's the acceptable number of Israeli civilians raped, murdered, dismembered, brutalized? What is the number that's acceptable? And number 2, is it or is it not true that Hamas uses civilians as human shields? So once you answer those questions, come back to me, and then we can have a conversation nailing down what a proportional response against Hamas and what that would look like, what that had to look like. We can have that conversation then. But you have to answer those questions. I'm not gonna get into the nitty-gritty on the Gaza death toll until you answer those questions. Let's go to this finally, wrapping up this morning. Jeff, my buddy Jeff, just back from Iraq. Only 6 weeks till college football starts. It's true. Every year I say it, I'm not as excited, but it's the season. It's fun. As long as you put it and keep it in proportion, it is fun. And it's hard to believe it's only 6 weeks away. This summer is slipping by fast. Cannot believe the month of July is more than halfway over with. Well, thank you for joining me again this week on the AM Update. I appreciate all of your support, all of you listening, all of you watching. Have a wonderful weekend. Back at it again on Monday.